And okay, we're going to be having her soon. She's going to be joining us very soon. And okay, thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. It's a great privilege. We're sorry that we are behind time a bit, and we're going to be having a speaker now. She's joined us. I think there's a problem, so let's give her a few seconds to join us, and then we're going to begin. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so just give a few minutes, and then she's going to join us. Okay. 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 So, as people joining us in. Okay, good. So we will be heading up right now, and be perfect. So, welcome. That's our speaker. You're welcome, Mom.
Hello, thank you so much. Talk about technology. You can't live with it or without it sometimes, right?
Okay, so let me introduce our speaker to you, and she'll be speaking on a very interesting topic, which I believe is going to help us. And we had a conversation before now, and I think it's very important to have someone like her speak to us, and knowing that it's the beginning of the year. So, you're welcome, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miracle, for having me. My name is Ty Threets, and I am the CEO and founder of Write the Vision Consulting Group. So, what we do with our consulting group is we help a lot of businesses from startup, small to mid-sized organizations transform their business. So, it can be through strategy, technology implementations, or increasing their operations, right? So I tend to post a lot on Instagram. Most of the time, it is from an inspirational aspect. I am just a person that in life, I just believe that you can do it. Whatever that thing is that you want to do in life, you can do it. And so I came across Miracle and we had a great conversation just in connecting and sharing a lot of synergies in terms of thought processes. So I'm beyond honored to not only be part of this broadcast and just what you're doing, which I think is remarkable. But also just to kind of understand your why and to learn that even where I sit today, we share some of the same passions and our reasons why. And so today, when you mentioned me speaking to the group, I'm like, it's the beginning of the year, and I am still in that motivational thought process of how do we just continuously, empower ourselves and where it is that we're going in life. And so the topic I want to actually talk about today, near and dear to my heart, because at the core of who I am always talking about transforming your mindset. So today we'll talk about transforming your mindset through empowered living. And why is that so important for me? Because I come from an economically disadvantaged background. So the way I grew up and the things that were around me and what I saw, circumstances, situations, the lack of access to resources, everything about that says that I shouldn't be where I am today. And but what made me, gravitate or just continuously push to where I am today was the transforming of my mind. And so, what I always like to tell people is seeing is not believing. Because if I, only went by what I saw in life, which I'll just share for anyone that's watching in the States, I grew up in the city of Chicago. And so that will be enough said for anyone that is from that area. But it just wasn't an affluent background. I definitely came, like I say, we were in poverty. We just came from low income backgrounds. And so for me, I knew just through education and being in places that I shouldn't have been, I learned that there was more to life. And so seeing my circumstances and where I was not my belief in where I could go. I always believed that me believing is what empowers me to see. So if I believe that, hey, I can have something greater than where I am, I will start to see it differently. And some people wait for the opposite. They wait to start seeing things change and then they start moving toward it. For me, I'm like, you have to believe that things can change and you will start seeing a way to move yourself towards that. And so that's the first thing that I just, kind of want to share, because that's the lens that we have to walk through life from. It's just believing that there is something different. Again, like I mentioned, in my circumstances, there was not a lot of high education, you know, college background, even access, like I say, to these resources, but yet I was able to not only achieve that. I shared with you before that I was in corporate for 22 years. I always like to make sure it's clear. I did start when I was 2. Okay. So don't start calculating my age, but I was in corporate for 22 years and I just continuously progressed the ranks. There was a lot of things that I learned, but also I happened into that space in kind of growing there just because I believed that I can continue to grow, through those ranks. I also continued through college. I mentioned too that I was a teen parent. And I think that, most people think that statistics, if you are a teen parent, that, well, we all know how that goes, right? So, but for me, I just knew that regardless to what happened, that there was a way for things to be different. Did I know how or what that was going to look like? No, but I believed in my heart that there was more. I did not want my daughter to grow up the way that I did, with lack of access or resources to different things. I wanted to change that. And so I constantly inserted myself into spaces that people like me would not be in, right? So whether I was on scholarship somewhere or continuously growing in my education, it helped open those doors. And so the part that I love most is one person can not only change their life in the trajectory of where they're going, but they have the power to change others' lives too. Because even though I may have been the first, in my family to do a lot of things, or in my friend groups to graduate or have a master's degree, or to soar in different places, or to reach certain income levels, or to purchase houses, or to do things like that, I may have been the first, but it opened the door for others around me. So they all achieved that and greater as well too. Why? Because I was, the example of like, hey, you can do this. If you change your mind, if you change your environment, if you change how you think about things, you too can achieve greater things. And so I think what I've learned most in life that I always love to share with people, and I think I shared this with you too, I am very clear that poverty is a mindset, not an income level. When we take the shackles off how we think and the way we look at things, it really enables us to soar. It's not about what we see around us, it's about what we see and envision for ourselves. Everyone has this little thought inside of them that's like, there has to be more to life or more to, whatever than where I'm at, but I don't know how. And they get stuck with the I don't know how part, when really what they should be leaning on is the I believe that there is more. It's that tiny voice inside of us. It's that little faith. It's that belief that, you know what, I believe that things can be different. I just don't know how. And that belief is actually the power that pushes us forward in every single thing that we do in life. I always believed that there had to be more than what it was that I was doing. Did I know how? No, I didn't. I learned how, so I'm able to teach people now. But so my first teaching is it starts to transform your mind. It doesn't matter if you've seen it, you just have to believe. And I think about even as I was growing up, I didn't have access to what most people have today, which is like all of this powerful internet tools, TikTok, social media, all of these things. You can learn anything at your fingertips. We had to go to the library and search, or maybe, Google wasn't as powerful as it was then. Maybe I am dating myself just a little bit, but it wasn't. And so I look at it now and I'm like, you have so much access to, things to be able to see, hey, there's life outside of where you're living right now. Or I don't have to think the way my environment thinks. I have the right to empower myself through learning, through reading, and just changing my thought process and how I move about things. So I'll pause there for a second because I know we talked about a lot of things. And so I just want to give you a moment to kind of share or ask any other questions that you had before I kind of soar on.
Okay. So the question I want to ask is about is how were you able to? Because I feel like growing up from where you came from, you had a lot of struggles, you had a lot of challenges. In how were you able to actually scale through, even with despite the fact that you had challenges, despite the fact that you were coming from a family where you didn't have so much people who had dreams, who had minds of their own alone. How were you able to do it?
So, how was I able to do it? It's like I say, that little faith inside of me. I'm a little firecracker. So, I'll back up a little bit. I come from a family, my mom has 9 children. And so we are a very close knit family. I will say that I'm probably very ambitious and bold and just like, I think we can do this. And, thankfully, even though they may look and say, that's a little weird, I don't know how you're going to do it, they're just like, well, go, like, go ahead and do it, right? And so if you figure out how, then we'll follow, right? And so for me, it's like, how was I able to do it? I mentioned to you before that I went to a performing arts school in the inner cities of Chicago, and you had to go through a lottery in order to get into there. So you had to be smart. And once I got into that school, at a certain grade level, they started inserting you into performing arts schools. And so I was in a dance program. And I had a teacher that saw a talent in me. And she spoke with my mom and offered me to go into a summer program. And I didn't have to pay in order to go into there. For me, that opened so many doors. It took me out of the area and the neighborhood that I was in and put me into an area and neighborhood with people whose parents were not struggling, who came from 2 parent households, who had affluent income. And even though there was a small part of me, which is common for everybody, it's like, I don't belong here, maybe I'm not good enough, all these things. There also was another part of me that was like, everybody else is not living, the way we live. There is more to life. And so how do I do that? And I just became curious. And I do think that curiosity is, the thing that helps you become more educated. But for me, how was I able to do it? I mentioned being in places that I normally would not have been in on scholarships. It just really opened my mind to the fact that there are, different ways to doing things. And I became so determined in my belief to see myself getting into better places that it didn't matter who around me supported or believed or thought I was crazy. Because that's another thing that people need to understand. Most times when you're a leader, when you're first, when you're anything, that road is traveled alone. People will, join later on, but most of the time you traveled that road alone. But I am just a person, like I say, I'm a firecracker. I'm just like, nope, I'm going to do this. Once I start believing something, that is all that I see. And what I saw was a better life. What I saw was a life that was not filled with struggle. I was like, everyone is not trying to figure out how to pay their bills every single day. Their bills are just paid, right? So how does that work, right? And so I just became curious and, just looking at how do I move toward that part, open up a book, continuously read. Does this get me into this space to do that? What types of jobs do I need to have in order to do that, to get there? And once I'm on those jobs, what are the types of skills that I needed? I was always gravitating toward people that were wiser than I was. So if they were older, if they had something else, that I was always gravitating toward that, arming myself with that information because, again, all I saw was a better life. And how, did I do that? And like I say, when you are the first person to do things, people will talk about you. People will turn their back on you. People will not follow you. People will think that you're crazy, and that's fine. That should not be the thing that makes you not do it. But those very same people will come back later on in life and say, hey, it was because of you willing to step outside of your box and do something different that we never saw before that made me feel like I too can do that as well. And so that became another one of my superpowers along the way, where it's like, I'm not just paving a new path for myself or my daughter later on, but I'm paving a path for other people who don't believe that, they can have a better life or access to that. And if I have to be, the young lady or the driving force that can show you, hey, it can be done, and turn around and encourage you to do it, I'll do it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so there's something else I wanted to talk about. I wanted to ask you, which I feel like it's very important. And this is not a religious settings per se, but what's the influence of your faith in your success? For the fact that you were a teen mother, How has your faith influenced your success to this point?
I always grew up in just a faith based household, I'll say that. But aside from that, there was just a strong drawing in me when I was younger. I'll never forget. When I was 7, 8 years old, I would sometimes go to church by myself, or I would go with just one person that was going to go, but nonetheless, I was going to go. And I was there and I was hearing the word and just being filled by the promises that, hey, this is what can happen. Or, if you're fearful of something, God didn't give us a spirit of the fear, and so those words started to feed me. So I understand wholeheartedly that from an early age, I had a call on my life, so much to the point that when I was a teen parent or became a teen parent, I knew that that was God's way. Like, God can bless all situations, no matter what you do in life. You can repent, and we can always be, made whole or come back to Him, right? But I knew then that that was His way of getting serious with me, where He's like, hey, I've called you to do certain things and you have to walk certain ways. To whom much is giving, much is required. And I remember just making a promise to Him that I'm like, you know what I cared about most was the life that I was carrying inside of me. And I was determined not to be a statistic, not to be a failure, not to fail this child, as well. And so I remember just kind of kneeling down before Him and just praying and repenting and asking Him to order my steps. And so in doing that, most people would think you don't graduate from high school when you have a child, or you have more right away. And that was not for me. A few months I graduated early. A few months after I had my daughter, I went on to a community college. I started working. That's when I started learning, like, okay, how do I break into an industry and do something? I've always been a leader. And so for me, the faith in me rises up everywhere I go. People look at me and, it's something that draws them to me. And I understand that even without speaking, that is my story and that is who I am inside, that is attracting other people. And so it absolutely has played a huge role, because when I say that small, still voice inside of you, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. I didn't see these things, around me or growing up, but I knew that, I can have anything that I choose to have, right? All I have to do is, pray about it, consult God about it, and kind of just lean into it. And so, it's funny because even my consulting group, as you know, is Right the Vision Consulting Group. And so for me, yeah, I always say that I'm good at taking, people's ideas and turn into a strategy. But more importantly, write the vision. That's the scripture. Write the vision, make it plain, right? And so I am such a believer in that. And I also believe too that, just like the scripture says, that though the vision tarry, wait for it, because in the end it will speak and not lie. And so sometimes people start out and they're just hungry. Oh, I believe this. And someone may be listening to this and maybe start feeling motivated, like, yes, I can do it. I can do it. And then they turn around and they're like, well, I felt that I can do it and I took some steps toward it and it didn't work out. So now I'm just going to give up, or I'm going to go back to doing whatever it was that I did before. And for me, it's like, no, it's that whole part of, if it tarries, wait for it, because in the end it will speak and it will not lie. I have never been failed by the promises of God. I don't care how delayed it has been. He has always led me, even into leadership rooms and things like that. I'm always praying and asking God to lead the way, make the right connections, open the right doors, showing me when to speak, how to act, what to do. And I've continuously progressed, like I say, through corporate and ranks, that people are like, how do you do it? How do you remain authentically you and, make it through there? And for me, it is my faith. That is the core of who I am. If anyone ever meets me, I'm going to pull you to the side, you can do it. Like, and I'm going to pour into you. And so just my whole grounding and faith in God is absolutely, the core of who I am, because I know where He's brought me from. And I know that I didn't follow some blueprint, that says, hey, you should get here. The God that I serve and the things that He's brought me through, almost to the point that when I talk to people and people are like, how do you do it? What should I do? I do think that there are some steps that you can take, but more importantly, I really think it's about believing in Him and believing in what it is that you want to do. And that will lead you. There's no straight path that says, hey, this is how you get, to that point.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Okay, so this the next question I'm going to ask, and I think this is something that we're actually experiencing in Africa. And the question is, you've been able to rise to the top, and you've really gone through a lot to get to where you are today. And how were you able to balance your faith and the application of wisdom in getting this far, where you're able to actually, keep your faith and at the same time give what belongs to Caesar, and at the same time, deliver on your job, and even how much you've grown this far? How were you able to do it?
So the first thing is, and that's a loaded question. So now we're getting into that's a loaded question. So the first thing is in my job, I'll say a few things. I can pray and ask God, hey, I'm looking for a job, I'm looking for an opportunity. You show me which one I'm supposed to do. And I can put applications in everywhere. And the one that's supposed to call me back is the one that will call me back. And when I interview, the offer that I get is the one that I'm supposed to have. And how do I know? Because of my conversations and my faith with God. It's like, hey, I ask you to put me in the place that you would have me to go. And this is the door that you open. So I believe, first off, that I am where I'm supposed to be, no matter what the circumstances look like. That's the first thing. If I'm always praying and I'm asking God to order my steps and lead me to where I'm supposed to be, when I arrive at that location, no matter the name of the company, I am where I'm supposed to be. And I'm very clear on my assignment that I am here. Now, once I arrive there, my paycheck is my paycheck. Okay. I'm there to do a job. I understand the job description and I know what I'm getting paid for. However, the other part that I'm looking at is my ministry, is my ministry. Who am I here to impact and how? So most people, I think, first off, they show up into the space and they forget how they got there. You arrived there because you prayed for direction on where you could be to answer the problem in which you needed, which is I needed income to take care of my family or my life or whatever. So I'm where God wants me to be. That's the first thing. Then we get there and we're like, oh, this is not what I want it to be. Or we start finding the problems, right? And so then we get consumed with, we don't like the culture of the company, or we don't like, these things and all this stuff, right? And we're in complain mode. But we forgot that we prayed and asked God to lead us to where we're supposed to be. So when I'm there and things are bothering me, I'm like, what is it that you want me to say? Even if it's a difficult leader, what is it that you want me to say to them, God? Because I don't believe that people are just difficult for no reason. I believe that sometimes they're struggling or going through different things. And most people are not, you have to be a person that's not selfish to look at someone and say, you probably responded that way because of insert whatever that reason is, right? Coming from curious and understanding people. I'm a lover of people, and I may look at someone and I may understand that your rude words today has nothing to do with who I am. Maybe you're frustrated about your bills. Maybe you're frustrated. And so my question is like, God, what is it that you want me to say to them? And so God has always opened that door. On top of that, knowledge. I understand the industries that I'm in, and I'm very passionate about I'm going to grow. I don't care if I started as a retail associate, which I did. I learned very well and I moved my way up to management. And when I get there, yes, celebrate. I'm happy about the pay and the fact that I'm getting more stability. But God, you have now made me a leader of people. How do I pour into them? Because everyone comes to work for a different reason. How do I pour into them and be that light or that answer to what it is that they wanted? That is always in me. Anytime I interact with people, anytime I interact with you, when you sent the message, okay, God, what is it that, you want me to say or impart? Let me have the conversation first. And so for me, that has always been my silent superpower. God tells me when to move, how to move, and what to say. Yes, I understand the industry. Yes, I can talk the talk. Yes, I have a superb work ethic. I absolutely do. And I'm going to continuously climb. But people are not promoting me just because I'm intelligent or I know these things. They're promoting me because they see the leader that I am. And the leader that I am is one that is passionate about people. I'm passionate about God's people. And I understand that my encounter with everyone is intended to elevate them in some type of way. Even if I'm just a listening ear, or even if, he opens that door for me to be able to share, my why. A lot of people look at me and they're hey, well, how did you get here? The Bible says, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. And I shared that with you before, that sometimes God will take the person that's obedient and he will lift them up. He will give them the job. He will give them the house. He will give them the cars. He will give them all the things that are shiny that makes people say, how did you get that? Okay, well, come on, because my story is him. And so for me, I'm always aware of that. So when you think about that, like, yes, there can be corrupt leadership, there can be corrupt jobs, there can be a lot of things that are not right, so to speak. But why are we here in that space? And what role are we supposed to play in that? We are all puzzle pieces, is how I look at it. Walking around, this world, we belong to some small picture. The places that we are inserted in, what mark are we supposed to leave there? And I don't have to work hard to do it. All I have to do is be in that space and pray and ask God for him to open up the doors or tell me when to speak or who to speak to. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, that really did. And so we have two more questions. Let's about three more questions.
Okay.
So we have about, let's say, close to 10 minutes. So now this is it. You come this far, and I feel like, as much as you're a person of faith, are there principles that you held dear to you that have brought you this far? That we could talk to a man who necessarily doesn't believe in God per se, or someone who is still not religious. Are there like principles that have brought you this far that you have very high esteem?
Hmm. I think I understand. I would just say I have strong morals and values, right? So there are just some things that I'm just not going to insert myself into. Even when you mentioned like companies or different organizations, there are just some things I'm not going to subscribe to, right? So I will look at the culture of a place, what they stand for, and if it aligns with my morals and values, that then I will. But there have been situations multiple times where I don't really know how to say it. I'm just not a person that's going to be moved. Just like what I believe, my morals, my values, those things that I hold near and dear to me, I'm just not going to move. And I have a way of respecting you in what it is that you choose to do and not subscribing to it. And I too think that that's another thing that people are like, how do you not get sucked into those things? That's just not who, like, when I say, and it's really hard to describe, like being authentically you, I understand not only who I am, but I understand whose I am. And I also understand my assignment. And for me, every day that I wake up, it's an opportunity to live it out. And so, that's the part that I think about in the back of my mind, always, every encounter. I'm like, if I died tomorrow, what would people say about me? And to hear, like, and that's the consistency in life that I want to live by, because that's my brand, that's who I am, that's my value. Did Ty make you feel a certain way when she talked to you? Did she make you feel heard? Did she make you feel encouraged? Did she make you feel that you want to move forward? And so for me, I just, like I say, there are certain, I probably can't name them right now on the spot, but I definitely have very strong morals and values. And it's just certain things that I'm not going to subscribe to. And I can be in certain situations and choose to still not become part of those situations. I can respect what it is that you do, but I'm not going to do those things.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. Okay, so this question is something I believe is very important here. And I think is, now, what mindset should young people or people as a whole develop, especially when they find themselves in situations where you actually had similar situations that you've actually experienced? What kind of mindset has brought you this far that you've held that they can apply in their own personal lives, especially when you find themselves in situations like you did?
I think going back to the first thing is, like, anytime we do something or we end up in a situation, the first assessment we need to first make is like, where am I and do I like it? I'm in this situation, for me, I'm a teen mom at this point. I'm in this situation. Do I like it? Right? I'm in this job, like I live in this, because I've changed states multiple times too. I do not live where I grew up at, right? If anytime I find an environment is not serving me, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move, right? And to have that courage to know that when environments or people don't serve you well, you have the right to remove yourself from that. And so, how do I strategize to get, away from that? So the first thing I always say is that wherever you are, you have first assess, do I like where I'm at? And then the second thing is know that you have the power to change that, right? So I'm always like, I like to encourage people where they are. It's like, okay, wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. But now the question is, do you like it? Do you like it, or what about that do you want to change? And if you start naming things you want to change, then to me, I'm like, there you go. There's a fire inside of you. There's something inside of you that's burning that says there's more to what it is that I'm doing or that I'm capable of doing. Lean into that, right? And so once you see where you are and then you believe that you can be someplace else, tell yourself you can do it. You can do it. And so now how am I going to do it? Once you believe that there's something more and you know that you can do it, now it's that how. I'm going to pick up a book. I'm going to Google. I'm going to go look and see on social media how other people are living and understand that, you know what I'm feeling inside of me, I can change those things, right? And so once I do that, the next thing that I always say, empower yourself to make those bold steps. And what does empowerment mean? It's pretty much giving yourself the permission to know I can change whatever it is that I want to change about that. I just need to figure out how. And for me, I always take my faith in God with me, right? Because I'm like, you didn't just put this desire in me for any reason. I'm going to change it, and I just need to understand how. And as I start to educate myself and open my mind, remember I said poverty is a mindset. Once we take the shackles off of how we think, we start moving differently. The more information I start taking in, I'm like, hey, I don't have to do that. I can do this differently. I can do these types of things, and then you can move forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have last two questions. I think that should be all. The one is this. It's a leadership podcast. Now, in your own point of view and your experience so far, what would you say in simple terms and in simple words? What would you say leadership is?
Ooh, that's tough. What would I say leadership is? First off, if you call yourself a leader, 9 times out of 10, you're probably not the one. It depends on, some people are like, I'm the leader. And I'm like, really? Leaders are quiet. Leaders are quiet, but very loud in their moves, right? And so for me, I never walk into a room and shout that I'm the leader. I walk into the room and people are like, there's the leader because of what's within me, right? The power to elevate people, right? So I always say, like, what is a leader? A person that is willing to eat last. That's the first thing, because I'm always thinking about how I can help others first. Now, I do believe in a balance of self-care, but I'm just saying, I'm always thinking about how can I pour into other people and elevate the situation. I do think that leaders are not only, silent, but with strong, just presence, but they also just kind of have like a thought process that just sees beyond where we are. And I think for me, it's like I can look at where a person is, a company is, a situation is, and I can see it where they are, but I can see where they need to be and where they need to go. And so I do believe that, leaders are strategists. They're willing to eat last. They are people servants, and they're level headed, right? And I think that too, sometimes people lead with so much emotion. I do have like empathy for people, but I am not an emotional, like, I'm just like, what is it that needs to be done? I'm not saying that leaders can't be emotional. I would just say that what needs to be done so that, we can continuously move forward. I hope that answered it, but that was kind of like on the fly of just some
Yeah,
qualities I
indeed.
believe that leaders possess.
Yeah, it was simple. It was simple. So now this is we're coming to the end of this section, and the last question I want to ask you is you had so much experience. You've worked with so much people. You have employees. You've had to work with people before you got your own company. You founded your company. What's one advice of something you want people should know that you probably have always wanted? You probably were let's say you were facing about millions of people. Something you wanted to know about your life or your experience and what you discovered about life, like a nugget.
What is something I would want people to know about life? Every person that you look at that you deem successful or someplace that you want to be took a bet on themselves, right? So for me, I'm always like, what you're looking at is belief in myself, in my abilities, in betting on myself. And most people are willing to walk that path alone. And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to walk paths alone, right? And so when people look, I think that's the one thing that just maybe rises the most curiosity. And I guess what I always would just want to shout to people when they're asking those questions is like, what you're looking at is a person that's willing to do it afraid, that's not afraid to walk alone, that has walked alone. And I chose to walk alone because I had such a strong belief in a difference that I wanted to make, not only in my life, but in the lives of others. And in a nutshell, that's always the person that's in the room. And I think that that's always the curiosity that people have when they're like, but tell me more. That's the thing. Take a bet on yourself. And like I say, do not be afraid to walk alone. When I was thinking about, like, just kind of summing up transforming your mindset for empowered living, and I talk a lot about how all of these things started from a thought or a belief in myself that I can change these things, and how I always sought out to learn more, be around people that were wiser than me, or just immerse myself in things that was different than where I was, but where I wanted to go. I really just feel like, to whoever is watching, this later on, right now, or even you, that in life, all you have to do is believe in something, begin doing that thing, and simply become. You have the right to become anything that you believe. So all you have to do is those simple things. Just believe that you can. Begin, because faith without works is dead. We got to put some type of action into it, right? Start doing something and then simply become. And you will continuously grow from that. And if I can add any other thing, don't be selfish. you know, because some people do it and they do it for themselves. And I'm like, I think the greatest flex, so to speak, in life is, no matter where I came from, not one person around me, not even in my family, is where we came from. And I know it's because I inspired them in some way. And, people are like, you're successful. I challenge what success is, because success is whatever it is that you see for your life. There is no one path of like how you get there or what's right, or anything. Success is whatever you choose to make it. But once you believe something and you begin doing it and you simply become that state of being, that's success. Because there's a lot of people that believe and never begin. So they certainly never make it to that becoming part. And so for me, that is the definition of success, right? And it looks different for everyone. And so I'm always very careful I'm not going to measure it. They're like, well, what is success? Like, did you believe you can do something? Did you begin it? And did you get there? That's success. That's success. And just celebrating people where they are. And so I love that no one in my environments are not the same, simply because I chose to do something different and I elevated those around me. And we continue to elevate each other, because once you start teaching other people the secret to expanding their mind, you have no clue who they will become. And so while you're pouring into others, others are pouring into you. And then before you know it, you have just elevated an entirely new environment of where you are. And for me, I don't care how far I elevate, you will always find me with my sleeves rolled up, back in the space that I've come from, reaching those people that had that same limited mindset or viewpoint that I did, that, just tells them, hey, you can change where you are if you want to. You don't have to live that way. So I'm not one of those people where it's like, oh, I've made it over here and I only live in that space. No, I care about those people that came from where I was, because I do wish that I had someone speaking into my life, showing me that it can be, done. And even though I didn't, I'm just always willing to be that person for other people.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Mrs. Deb. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful, honestly grateful for this opportunity to have you to speak on this topic. And what is it? I want to say something. Thank you so much, really. I'm really grateful. And also thank you to everyone who's joined, those who joined on Instagram and then YouTube. Thank you so much as well. So we're going to come to the end of this section, and that should be that for all.
Yes, it was great meeting with you. Thank you for allowing me to join.
Same, yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you guys some other time.